a word of mouth mechanism change, right? I could have just been like, yeah, we'll just tell people about growth trackers. But instead I was like, let me toy with the mechanisms here and make something that's easier to refer people to. That way I can have a wider funnel of people coming in. Welcome back to the Low Energy Leads Show. Today we're talking about how to use word of mouth marketing to book better clients. Word of mouth is vastly misunderstood. It is the collapsing of several mechanics and systems in your business and in your life that probably you don't even recognize are working to your advantage. Today we're going to break some of those down. I'm going to give several concrete examples from my own business and life where word of mouth has really paid off. And we're also going to talk about how you can take control and actually drive word of mouth. I'm Lex Roman. I empower creatives to make marketing bets they can win, and you're tuned in to the Low Energy Leads Show. Let's define word of mouth marketing. It is one of my biggest pet peeves when people say, oh, all of my business is word of mouth. To me, that is such a shallow take on what is actually a very complex set of things that are working in your favor. Word of mouth marketing is, in its essence, people spreading the word about who you are and what you do. So some typical examples we see in this space are ambassador, affiliate programs, referral programs, shares on social media, forwards, conversations, shout outs. And a lot of times I think people feel like, well, it's out of my hands, right? Like people talk or they don't talk and I have like nothing to do with it. And I could not disagree more. Whether you have put some things in place that are working in your favor that you don't even recognize, or you take the reins and actually make an effort to drive it, word of mouth marketing is absolutely a system. It is absolutely a strategy, and it's totally up to you. Do I want to take part in this, or do I want to sort of like be on the wild bull of a ride of word of mouth? One thing that we don't talk about often enough in word of mouth marketing is when you make something that is so damn shareable that people organically share it. And this is, I think, why sometimes people feel like this is out of my control. But actually that part is extremely in your control. If you think about the Popeyes chicken sandwich or the Shamrock Shake at McDonald's, those are things that people want to share. They are special, they are one time, they are exclusive, they are only available at that business. And you might think, well, Lex, I'm not Popeyes or McDonald's. I'm not coming up with cool, exciting stuff. I'm just running a service-based business over here. I get it. But I'm going to share 4 examples where this has worked for me. And I think you'd be surprised at what that bar is, because it's not as high as you might think. It's high, but it's not as high as you might think. And there's something really exciting about the idea that you're doing something fresh, or you have a fresh take on something, you're creating something novel that people want to get their hands on. And when you approach it that way, rather than like, let me force all these people to talk about me, let me give them something to talk about, it becomes a lot more fun. Marketing becomes a lot more of a creative project and a lot less of a grind. So what's at play with word of mouth marketing? Why do I say it's a system? There's 5 factors at play with word of mouth marketing. Some of these things you might be not thinking that hard about that are already working in your favor. And other ones you might think, oh, wow, I've really not considered that at all. And I should put this thing into place. The 5 aspects of word of mouth marketing are people, channels, assets, messages, and timing. Those are going to sound familiar to you because they are really similar to the test axes that we use in growth trackers. They are really similar to a lot of the ways that we've talked about different marketing strategies. We talk about channels and messages and timing all the time. And in this case, the people aspect is not necessarily your end client. It is much more expansive than that. Let's dive into these 5 aspects of word of mouth marketing, starting with people. The people that you already know. The way that word of mouth marketing takes off is with the people who you already know, who already know you. This is your network, your clients, your partners, your followers. So everywhere you have a relationship with people, whether they're just an Instagram follower or someone you're working with on a daily basis, all of those people have a role to play in your word of mouth marketing system. Now, for folks that are not leveraging this system, those people may talk about you anyway, which is great. We like that. That's a good sign of health in your business. But there's probably a lot of people in your network, in your broader day-to-day life, who aren't talking about you or don't know what to say or don't know where to send people. And that, ding, 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 is a place of opportunity. Second part of your word of mouth marketing system is channels. The ways that you communicate with these people. Where are you talking to them? Again, this is the people that you already know, your clients, your partners, your followers. These are your hangout spaces, your stay in touch channels, right? Email, social media, your podcast, your community, places where you're hanging out with the people that you've already had a relationship created with. These channels are where you might deploy a word of mouth test. Where can you use this leverage point? It's going to be on one of these channels. This is slightly different from your visibility channels or your top of funnel channels. These are channels that are lower down. The channels that you're deploying with word of mouth, they're relational channels. They're stay in touch channels, right? They're places where you're talking to people frequently, where you know them, they know you, and the messaging is different. The way that you talk to them is different. You can also think of these channels as soft places to land. These can often double as that, right? So in the case of your newsletter or your social media, you're talking to people who are already in your network, in your audience, and you're encouraging them to bring other people to that exact same place, right? Forward this newsletter so that those people land in the place that we're already hanging out. Let someone know about this post so that they follow me on Instagram in the place that we're already hanging out. So channels are both, let me cultivate this community and this audience, and also bring folks into this same space. Next, we have assets. So these are those publicly shareable assets that make you easy to talk about and easy to share. This is so much more important for those of us who do lower cost things or need a frequency of lead. If you're promoting offers that are sub $1,000, if you're selling a course or a membership or a digital product, you definitely need to have assets. You need to have more publicly shareable assets. These are things like your website, specific landing pages, individual social posts, podcast episodes, freebies, or talks or webinars that are online. These are things that people will take and share. The difference between an asset and a channel is that an asset is one artifact that someone's going to share, and a channel is a continuous communication line between you and your word of mouth network, right? The people that are in your audience. Of course, after assets and channels, we've got messages. What people say about you, or what they should say about you. This is where you have a big opportunity. The more you seed this language, the more high quality leads you'll get, the better your word of mouth becomes. You can tell people what to say about you. You can offer that language and you can repeat it over and over again, which will get them thinking of you in the way that you want them to think of you. I have a friend who still thinks I'm a web designer, and it's because I have not seeded the proper language with her so that she can share the right message about what I'm doing now, right? That hasn't latched on for her. You want to make sure that you're seeding that language with people, that they know how to talk about you, what to say, and where to direct people. The last part of your word of mouth system is timing. Some of us will deploy a word of mouth strategy that happens year round, or more commonly, I hear of this in a quarterly cadence, especially with high ticket consulting businesses. So some kind of quarterly stay in touch, word of mouth, bring people in. I've spoken before about the agency I worked at in San Francisco where they would do a quarterly mixer, and that was a way to propel the word of mouth engine. It was a way to stay up with clients. It was a way for them to bring people in. So a quarterly stay in touch strategy can make sense. You can also think of word of mouth as a one-off campaign. There's definitely examples of brands like Casper, like Dropbox, who have leveraged word of mouth as a campaign where it's a dedicated push. I heard this example on a YouTube of a smoothie brand that sent out a text saying, everybody has a discount today if your name is Peter. And they used that as a word of mouth strategy because then everyone who got that text texted people that they knew named Peter. I'll link that YouTube video in the comments. It's really a pretty funny example. So you can think about it as a promo campaign, or you can think about it as an evergreen year-round strategy. That's what we're talking about with timing. So people, channels, assets, messages, and timing. Before we go into these systems a little bit more in depth, I'm going to talk about how I've set this up for my own business. I want to share some examples that have shown me the power of word of mouth marketing. I've got 4 examples for you around different parts of my business and even some past incarnations of my business where I've really seen word of mouth be a powerful marketing engine. And that's what keeps me so excited about it year after year, and wanting to break it down and encouraging people to not flatten it into just tossing it up into something that they can't control. The first example is from my public speaking career. I used to do a lot of public speaking on data analytics and growth using data. And I used to talk in particular about a tool called Amplitude. Amplitude's an analytics tool. It's not super relevant for small business owners, but it was for tech companies. And I would say to the crowd almost every time I gave a talk, tell Amplitude you loved this talk, because I really wanted them to know about me. I wanted Amplitude to sponsor me. I wanted to partner with them. I wanted to get on their radar. And so I would have people tweet at Amplitude and mention my talk. And people would do that as they were in the audience watching my talk. And that got me on the radar of Amplitude. So I was leveraging the audience I had, right? People that are there watching this talk to get in front of the audience I want, which is this brand partner Amplitude. And I would go on to do speaking engagements for Amplitude. I've written for their blog. We did a partnership together. I spent many years working with the Amplitude team. And that all started with people tweeting about my talks. The second example I have is when I wanted to go after growth design contracts. This is when I first launched my business in 2019. Maybe even back in 2017 or 18, I frequently would try to contract in between full-time jobs. And so I sent an email to some of my design colleagues asking them to refer me to someone and giving them all of the details about what I was doing, who I was helping, and who I wanted to be connected with. I got so many intro offers off of that email. That's a perfect example of leveraging word of mouth to drive new audience growth. And I booked several contracts off of that one email. I've spoken about my contract with Gusto. I also booked a job at Burner years ago off of this same strategy. So sending an email, making that word of mouth super easy, notifying people at the right time with the right message. My third example is with my membership, Growth Trackers. You've heard me talk a lot about Growth Trackers. We've experimented a lot with how to get word of mouth working for Growth Trackers, because membership word of mouth is quite different from services word of mouth. It was a lot easier for me to get word of mouth when people would just come in, I would do a sales call and scope a proposal for them. It's much harder when word of mouth is driven into one very specific offer. So what we've done with Growth Trackers is we've added this Guest Pass program, and that creates an intermediary place for people to land. So members and fans of Growth Trackers can refer people into Guest Pass, which takes the load off of my referral partners to explain what Growth Trackers is. I was finding before we had two problems with referrals. One was that referral partners didn't quite know what to say about Growth Trackers. And that sales burden was just too much for people who had not been in the program. And that was a missed opportunity for me. And the other thing is that even for current members or past members, they struggled to sell it properly. And it didn't really matter how much language I had put out there. It was just let me just take this off of everybody. I'm going to just let people try before they buy with this Guest Pass program. And so that's created just a really easy entry point. We've had hundreds of folks get into the Guest Pass program, and much less than that actually come attend. I think we've probably had 20 or so people attend since we launched Guest Pass in November or December of last year. But it's working so much better than before. It's obviously was a big barrier. So creating that soft place where I take the sales burden, not my referral partners, has been a huge win. And again, a word of mouth mechanism change, right? I could have just been yeah, we'll just tell people about Growth Trackers. But instead I was let me toy with the mechanisms here and make something that's easier to refer people to. That way I can have a wider funnel of people coming in. Have you ever caught yourself giving out your website with a side of, please don't judge my site, it's on my eternal to-do list? Imagine directing someone to your site and instead of bracing for their reaction, you're beaming with pride. Picture your website not just as a digital space, but as your round-the-clock, cape-wearing superhero helping your business grow while you take a nap. Stacey Nichols with Space Cookie Designs is all about elevating your online presence from oops, still working on it to oh wow, you have to see my site. Learn more at thespacecookie.com. The last example here, and this is one that I love, this story will stay with me forever, and it is the bar that I need to surpass. It's you always want to set the bar for yourself according to your own goals and outcomes. And so this is a great example of that. I started a newsletter in 2020 called LA Pays Attention. And I seeded that newsletter with 20 friends. It was a political newsletter. I used to write my friends about elections and political campaigns and things like that. And so I started a formal newsletter on Substack in 2020. That newsletter got so much referral traffic because those editions were so timely and so relevant to the audience that thing grew through word of mouth, through forwards and social media shares so quickly. From March to July, 2,000 subscribers. And that also got a lot of press attention because it grew so fast and it got in front of press through word of mouth from my subscriber base that I got several press mentions. I got a couple press features. And that's an example of doing something that's so unique and awesome. Not to like pat my own back too hard on this. It wasn't like the craziest thing you've ever heard, but it was one of a kind. It was something that you really couldn't get anywhere else. And I got told that many times by my subscribers and by the press that I got interviewed by. And it was like the Popeye's chicken sandwich of political newsletters. It was something that people were like, oh, wow, I have not seen this before. I need to tell someone else. And this brings me to a point that I heard last week from two people in the Design Creators Slack group, Pat Morgan and Trevor Nielsen, in different conversations. They both raised this point of making something that is organically shareable, making something with the intent for it to be shareable. Trevor said to me, Lex, what about when you write your LinkedIn post, if you don't think, let me just write about this topic, but let me gear towards repost. What's something that I can share that people will want to share with others? That has totally changed my mindset already about what I'm writing on LinkedIn. What's something that I can create that is interesting for people to share, that is easy for them to share, that lowers that bar for them to share. So that's something that I'm keeping top of mind, because when we talk about word of mouth, the crux of that is delivering value and delivering unique value in a way where you're the obvious go-to for that thing. We've talked about this on this show. What is the thing that you're known for? How are you differentiating in the market? And word of mouth just comes back to how well you're doing those things. Like your word of mouth engine starts to crank when you are nailing the value and it is unique and only can be delivered by you. So that's something that I think about with every piece of content that I'm putting out now that is going to be my bar. What is shareable? How do I make this thing so organically shareable that I don't have to ask? But of course, I don't think a little asking hurts. And that's why we're going to talk about my word of mouth system, some of the things that I've put in place to optimize these levers, to make them work better for me. People are kind and they want to talk about the work that I'm doing and they want to talk about the work that you're doing, but it's not always easy for them to do so. And that's why we have a word of mouth system. Going back to the 5 components of the word of mouth system, we've got people, channels, assets, messages, and timing. Starting with people, I keep track of my network in Airtable. I have a special Airtable. You can actually go to my Gumroad shop and get my Airtable template where I track my network. Now, I don't track everyone I've ever met in this table. I don't bother with that. I track about 82 people who are important to me. They include several clients, they include referral partners, they include a few people that have purchased things from me who I think could become growth trackers or clients. They include partners, collaborators, people I want on the show, important people in my life who have served as connectors for me and my business. So I don't think about my network in terms of like everyone I've ever met in my whole life. I just think about it as this small set of people. I call that Airtable Lex's powerful network because it is a reminder that these are the people that are the core of my word of mouth engine, that they continue to bring value to me and my business. And that is why I keep track of them. I take note of the last time I've interacted with them. I take note of some of the key things that have happened in our relationship. And this is a great list to go back to when I'm looking to book speaking gigs or looking to get new members or looking to pick up a one-on-one client. These are the people that I turn to. When it comes to channels, I have 3 main channels in my word of mouth system. I've got my newsletter, I've got this podcast, and I've got LinkedIn. As we talked about before, those both serve as the places where I'm connecting with you and the people on this list, the 82 people on this list. They're also the places where you and the people on my network list bring people in, right? They're entry points for me. They're dual purpose. They're places where I'm keeping up with my network. I'm continuing the conversation that we're having, but I'm also inviting people into that space and creating a soft place to land. So they create these easy referral points where people don't have to just send people right into a buy transaction with me. They can say, oh, check out this newsletter, check out this podcast. They can tag someone on LinkedIn or they can repost on LinkedIn. This brings us to assets. I have some specific assets for word of mouth. One of them is my referral page. If you go to lexroman.com/refer, you'll see my page where people deliberately sign up to be what I call an amplifier of my programs. I think of my referral partners as broader than this, but some people just want to know, like, what should I say? How can I refer? And that page and the email that you get when you sign up there gives you all of that information. It also puts you on my MailerLite segment for my amplifier program. We're going to get to that in a second. Also in assets is Growth Tracker's Guest Pass. We talked about that earlier. Guest Pass is a great soft place to land. It is my choice for where you should refer people to Growth Trackers. That is already validated and working. Like, that was so broken. I can't tell you how broken that was in the past. I'm so glad that we finally fixed that. Growth Tracker's Gas Pass is an amazing asset for my word of mouth system. The Low Energy Leads newsletter is also a great asset. That's a wonderful thing for people to forward and share. Any issue of that newsletter is shareable. And there's actually a block in the bottom that says, know someone who would like this, forward this email to them. So that newsletter and every edition of it is meant to be a word of mouth asset. And then lastly, talks and webinars that I give. This is huge in terms of my sales, in terms of getting people into my programs. Talks and webinars just do the most sales labor for me. And so those are great assets for people to send around. And that is why I do so many of those activities and why I share them with referral partners. So often if somebody's like, oh, what's something that I can give someone about how you think and how you work, Lex? I will very often share with them a specific talk or webinar, or sometimes a podcast episode that sort of lays out how that thing works and is a really good intro to me and what I'm offering. So that's 4 assets: a referral page, Growth Tracker's Guest Pass, the Low Energy Leads newsletter, and talks and webinars. When it comes to messages, I use MailerLite to send specific emails to my referral partners. So the folks that are on the MailerLite segment aren't necessarily one-to-one with the people in my Airtable network. People in my Airtable network might get more one-on-one outreach, or they might just be people that I need to remember to keep up with. Folks in the MailerLite segment have specifically opted in to amplify programs and to explicitly be referral partners for me. I like to treat that almost like an insider list, and the messages that they get there are quite different from my public messages. Like, the people on that list are people that I know pretty well, who trust me and believe in me. And so if you're getting those emails, high five to you. I like to give them a little behind the scenes. I'm much more direct with that list. The messages I'm giving there are, here's what's going on with the business. Here's what we're doing in Growth Trackers. Here's how you can promote it. I also like to reward them for how much value they're bringing me. So they do get invited to special events. Like, I did something in November called the Matched Up Mixer, which was only available to clients and partners. And it was an online event. I had a live musician there, Benjamin Mora, and we did matchmaking networking. So I match made everybody into networking groups. The last part of my word of mouth system is timing. So I'm probably the worst about this. I have some evergreen parts of my word of mouth system. I mentioned Growth Tracker's Guest Pass, this referral page, which people can sign up anytime. There's automations off of both of those. The newsletter block that says forward this email. Those are sort of evergreen timing aspects. There's loops here that people can tap into without me having to drive them. When it comes to emailing this MailerLite segment, I'm probably the worst about that, which is so funny because if you're working with me, you know that I'm pushing you to do this more frequently. I'm trying to get better at doing this once a month because the word of mouth system is the most important part of my business. It's probably the most important part of your business too. And I need to get better at systematizing that in the way that I have systematized the Low Energy Leads newsletter. I will say that if I'm gearing up for a launch, I'm better about creating a specific promo campaign to that list. For example, when I used to launch Growth Trackers, I would send that list a special campaign that was separate from the public notes that I was sending people. You know, the 2 modes there are kind of like, are there evergreen aspects to your word of mouth system, like my forward to a friend block in the newsletter? And are there one-time promos that you're doing, like around a specific launch or getting people excited about coming to a webinar, for example? It's worth remembering and highlighting that if you do content marketing in any way, that those are great referral paths too. So that is like LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. In my case, the newsletter, this podcast, those create great soft landing spots. They're hangout spots. People can tag friends, they can share a post, they can forward an email. It just makes it really easy. They don't have to qualify buyers on my behalf. This allows for people to come in at a different speed. If a referral isn't coming in hot as a buyer, they're not self-identifying as a buyer yet, it allows people to say, you know, I think you'd find Lex interesting, or I think you'd like low energy leads. And especially if those referrals are hanging out with me in a content channel, it's not any extra work for me that they're there. This really widens my opportunity to market to these people. It gives me more people in my word of mouth system. It offers me more referral opportunity. And then it's up to me to convert those folks, to get to know them, to figure out what speed they're coming in at. I mentioned some tools in my word of mouth system. I want to call those out again in case you're a big tool fan. Airtable for tracking my network, LinkedIn, MailerLite, which is my email list tool. Any email list tool that does tagging or segmentation will do this. I want to give an honorable mention to my favorite tool, Senja, for reviews. Senja is great for capturing client reviews and reusing them or allowing them to share. Actually, after you leave a review with Senja, you get an opportunity to share your review publicly, which is very cool. Partnero, which is a tool I recently discovered that the MailerLite team built. Partnero is cool because it handles both newsletter referrals and purchase referrals, like product referrals. Theoretically, I could use Partnero both for my newsletter referral program and for Growth Trackers referrals. I'm not currently doing that, but it's a great opportunity for those of you who really want to lean into referral programs, affiliate programs. It's a very clean UI. It's a really nice tool. I also really like Thanks, THNKS, for easy virtual gifts. I like to pay cash for referrals. I like to reward people with money and commissions, but you can use Thanks to show appreciation for people who do something nice for you. A lot of times your word of mouth system is more complex than someone just sending direct clients to you. And there are people that are like boosting and sharing and amplifying you who also deserve a reward for playing a role in your word of mouth system. And so Thanks is really great, like $5 gift cards. You can send coffees to people. You can even bulk send, thank you notes to people with a little gift card attached. Really easy. You don't have to mail anything. Great tool. People really appreciate it. It's very low cost, but people appreciate that you took the time to think of them and send them something. I hope by now I have convinced you not to flatten word of mouth, that you can know your mechanisms, you can set up systems, and you can identify which parts of your word of mouth system is working and which parts are not. Remember that you can optimize these word of mouth levers. There's lots of opportunity to test and track and tune the different parts of your word of mouth system to make it cook even better than it is now. You can use tools and systems to make this a year-round evergreen approach, or you can try those one-off campaigns. You can pull a Popeyes where you do a one-time promo push for intros, shares, reviews, or forwards. This is our second to last episode before our hiatus. We're going to take a little break from the show through into the summer. Next week, I'm going to do a best of low energy leads episode to celebrate 1 whole year of the show. I've made it 1 year, and then we're going to go on a hiatus. You can get more tools and tips when you join the Low Energy Leads newsletter. I'll be doing even more templates, recipes, events there when the show goes on break. So head over to read.lowenergyleads.com to get on the list. If you want this show to make a return, the best thing you can do is forward that newsletter to someone you know would like it. I could use a little word of mouth over here. You can't see me, but I'm winking at you. Until next time, keep your energy low until you know the value will be high.